a wise decision when he chose you as the chancellor, because we could look back at other decisions that we don't need to talk about here, but this was a wise decision when it came to that. But again, the reason that some of these concerns come up is because I'll give you an example. Just recently, as you just stated, the mayor, every mayor, not just this particular mayor, but every mayor has a certain agenda and wants to move forward. And sometimes they will take certain measures and recommendations, and they will accept them, and sometimes they won't accept them. They move forward. On a different front, just recently at Community Board 4 in Queens, there was a vote on bike lanes where the community boards rejected the bike lanes, and the day after, I think maybe it was even the same day, maybe the day after, the mayor said, that's nice, we're moving forward. And again, this is why some of the concerns pop up when it comes to PEP and others and other organizations or committees, because are we really listening to what the recommendations are, and will the agenda get in the way even though the recommendation is contrary to what that particular mayor has on his agenda?
Like I said, I will answer for myself and my interactions, and I take very seriously. I will tell you that our CEC Saturday meetings, which I really last almost 3 hours, and several of those presidents have become people I call for when I want opinions, because they are genuinely the people who are closest to the parents in that district. And they're all different. That's another thing. When you're in the, and again, it doesn't even matter by borough, within each borough, there are all these neighborhoods that have different interests. You know, I don't want those kids in my building. Really? And what are those kids? Who are those kids? They're my kids. So how do you, kind of balance everybody else's interest and come up with something? I can't stress enough that when I'm stuck, and I get stuck once in a while, what's best for kids? And I don't think of my children, because I was a mother who kind of said to my kids, get used to it, life isn't always fair. But so I think of my grandchildren, because for my grandchildren, I will go to hell and back to make sure they have the best things possible. So how does everybody look at everybody in their building as their grandson or their granddaughter and make sure that we're doing the best for them?
Yeah. Two more questions briefly. So last year, as it was noted here by the chairman, $21.8 billion was invested in the Department of Education, which $9.15 billion came from Albany, or 41%. So that is majority, if you were to compare it, that's a majority shareholder stake when it comes to education. So why shouldn't we, as state legislators, have a say where we revisit on a much shorter time span, whether it's 2 or 3 years, to review mayor control, to see how the system is going, see how it's playing out? Why not review the concept of mayor control on a timeline staggered, maybe a year after mayoral elections, so no one can say it is political, just to sort of see how it's going, how the money is being spent. Is it being spent wisely? Are the children moving forward? Is the curriculum moving forward? Because I understand the mayor comes here and he says that he wants 7 years. But that's with the assumption that he's going to be the mayor again. What if he's not the mayor again? Now we are stuck with a mayor who we have no say. If we were to give him 7 years, we would have no say on how his curriculum is moving forward. We'd have no say how the education department is moving, because we are stuck and we've given him 7 years. So why not the 2-year, a 3-year, kind of similar to what the Assembly just passed yesterday?
Well, let me answer this 2 different ways. First and foremost, no matter what we do, I believe we're setting a foundation. No one's going to take away pre-K. No one's going to take away community schools. Also, evaluate us on our record. Our graduation rate is growing. Our dropout rate is lessening. Our attendance is moving. So those are successful things that anyone who comes after me has to continue or get better, because that's the foundation, that's the bottom line, that's the legacy. I think also, certainly as a former principal, I was a principal when every 2 years or 1 year and a half, we had a different chancellor. And why do we have a different chancellor? Because the chancellor and the mayor at the time got mad. one wanted one thing, one wanted another, it hit the papers, and all of a sudden, and I remember one situation particularly, where the principals got together, we had a phone call in the district that I was principal in. Okay, what do we do? Do we stand up for the chancellor? Do we try to take the wrath of the mayor at the time? It happened to be a chancellor that I particularly cared for, that I thought was really doing good work. And then all of a sudden, the stability went away, and we got caught in the middle. I don't want the teachers and the principals to get caught in the middle of this. So I think if we do a particularly good job, which I think we actually are doing better than good, that foundation has to be for someone else to improve on and make better. No one, hopefully, and that's, you know, one of the reasons I took on this job, and that's why I'm in a hurry to get it done right. No one will undo what we say we've done and will work.
And that's a very valid point. But again, the chancellor serves at the pleasure of the mayor. So when the assumption is, when you're asking for 7 years, is that you will be the next mayor. And what happens if he's not the next mayor, and the next mayor comes in and doesn't choose Karina Farina as the chancellor? And
Husband will say thank you.
and then that next chancellor will then have to work, you're right, hopefully with the foundation that you've laid out, so that they can build on it. But what if that chancellor just doesn't build on that foundation? Now we as state legislators will be stuck with the bill for the next 4 years of this individual's mayoralty. And that's why, again, I asked the question, why not 2 years? Why not 3 years as opposed to 7?
I think right now I said in my statement that what the Assembly said with 3 years, certainly to me is a good starting point. Anything less than that I think would create more instability. But any mayor has the right to choose his commissioners. You know, it's not just the chancellor, but, you know, the police commissioner, the fire commissioner. It's the way it's been done forever. I think my job, and certainly the other commissioner's job, is to do the best job possible so everyone will be fighting against our record. And I want to say publicly that I also think it's important that a chancellor be an educator, and that be part of what I think Mayor de Blasio, from the very beginning when he was running for mayor, he said, one promise I can make you is that I want an educator. And I think that's something the electorate holds the mayor accountable for. You know, if that's what you run on, then that's what you vote for. And if someone says, I want a CO, then that's who you vote for. But I do think the mayor has the right to make these decisions.
Well, I just want to end by saying muchísimas gracias.
Mi placer.
Creo que usted está haciendo un gran trabajo.
Gracias.
I just say thank you very much. I think she's doing a great job.
I wish you guys wouldn't talk Greek. Greek. It's to me. Senator Stavitsky.
Maybe I should say mi llamo.
Te amo.
Yeah. You've touched on a question that I was going to ask you, and perhaps you can expand on it. If you were writing a job qualification for chancellor, what would you put on the list of required experiences or education or whatever?
Well, obviously, an educator, but not a theorist, a practical educator.
My husband used to call them educationists.
Well, I do think it's really typical of what we've done from the beginning. We said, no one can apply to become a principal who hasn't had 7 years. First chancellor's reg that I put in place, no one can become a principal without 7 years pedagogical experience. It could be a combination of teacher, guidance counselor, whatever, but 7 years. Then we said, which nobody thought we would actually do, all superintendents have to reapply for the job, and only people who have been principals for a minimum number of years can become superintendents. Because how do you have credibility? How do you tell people to do their job if you haven't done part of it yourself? So I think qualification, and I'm not going to tell you how many years, but certainly years in terms of having served in some kind of educational program. I'd say another qualification, demonstrated experience in working well with others, and others could be elected officials, parents. Certainly in my whole history, I've done all those things. I've been able to talk to a variety of people. And I think that should be part of the qualifications for this job, because you need to be able to do that. And the other thing that I think I've thought a lot about in the last couple of years, particularly since I've taken on this job, being a good communicator. I mean, we have added now into all our professional development for administrators a communications course. How to be able to write well, so when you communicate with your parents and everyone else, you can do that. How do you speak before an audience? I mean, that's part of the Common Core for our kids, but it should be part of us. It shouldn't be someone who doesn't think that they have to explain themselves. That's why I'm here today. I do believe being a good communicator and a good listener, again, not always agreeing, but listening and being able to understand what people are saying in the context. So I think those are 3 qualifications that I think are crucial.
On another issue, I, along with Senator Morcellino, we were both high school teachers. He just taught longer than I did. But I've always had the idea that a school is run by the principal and supervisors.
School is run by the secretaries.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry about that.
No, you're right.
It's true. It's true, because secretaries know where the bodies are buried. And they are supervised by superintendents. And at one point, there were over 100, I think 110 superintendents. We're down to 44. We have one for each of the 32 districts, plus 2 for District 75, and then miscellaneous ones in the boroughs. Are they impeding the ability of the principals? Is there a way where we can return some of the school authority to the principal to administer whatever the superintendent and chancellor, et cetera, hand down?
I think so, but I think autonomy needs to be earned, not given away. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Every superintendent was told, by the way, I meet with all the superintendents once a month, and I spend at least an hour and a half.
You need a big room.
Well, 44 is not so bad. And remember that when they were LISs, which was the prior system, although they had less schools, many of them did not have the rating power as well as the support. So it was a little, truncated in ways it shouldn't be. But these superintendents have the ability to both evaluate principals through the PPOs, as well as to visit schools and determine who needs more support. They've also been very clearly instructed that there has to be the right principal in every building so that students and teachers succeed. But all the superintendents were told, and it's the way I've always run all my systems, to put their schools in tiers of 3. Who are the principals that you basically leave more or less alone? They make all their decisions. Who are the principals in the meeting, in the middle, who you actually give a little bit more support in the area they need it? Because if I'm a principal and I all of a sudden have to take on a special program that I know little about, I need support. And who are the principals that need more supervision when making certain types of decisions? And one of the things we've said to look for, if you're a school with a, let's say, 30% turnover rate of teachers, I expect the superintendent to ask why. Why are teachers not staying beyond a certain amount of time? What are you doing as a principal that may not be encouraging teachers to stay or supporting them, whatever? So I do think it's a very individualized system. I do think that principals still have a lot of autonomy. As a principal, there are a lot of decisions, who you hire. The curriculum is not open for discussion in terms of, I expect certain things. We had a few years where every teacher and every principal was doing their own thing. So if you moved from an elementary school to a middle school, there was no continuity. If you had 5 feeder schools, for example, elementary schools, moving into one middle school, those teachers had to figure out what school you came from, to figure out what math curriculum you were using, what literacy curriculum you were using, and that made middle school much more difficult. And it's already difficult enough. Middle school is obviously, to me, the most difficult grades to teach, but you need to be able to have that consistency. So I think that's part of what the superintendents do.
Lastly, you spoke before about the gifted and talented programs, and those are programs that I happen to be interested in. I know we disagree on the issue of the specialized high schools, but I am convinced that with additional gifted and talented programs, particularly in the early grades, that it will become much less of an issue of diversity. How are you going to implement the additional gifted and talented programs that I think really have to follow UPK? to me, it's a natural progression.
I totally agree with you, but let me tell you how we're doing it a little different. I go back to the days when I was a teacher of gifted and talented when it was called IGC.
Remember the
And
IGCs?
I was asked, I was said the other night, I must have a thing about people bringing me back from leaves. The superintendent asked me if I would give up my maternity leave to come back and teach the first gifted and talented program at the time in Brooklyn. And it started in 3rd grade. And there was a difference why it started in 3rd grade. It started in 3rd grade because the ability to get the word out to all the parents whose kids were in 2nd grade across the district, because it wasn't just in one school, were much better than if you started it younger. So to me, we have 4 new gifted and talented programs starting in September. The other major difference that is under, I guess, the state legislature, now gifted and talented teachers need to be certified. There's a certification for gifted and talented, and very few universities actually give those courses. So we're working with the New York Historical Society and Hunter College to give that certification to the teachers we hope to hire for these programs. The other thing is in District, 723, 16, got the other one. But there are 4 districts where we are going to be actually using multiple measures for all 2nd graders in that district. So we are going to be asking all 2nd graders to be eligible too, and we will pick the ones that meet the criteria. We have special rubrics that it's all done. I'm happy to share it with you. And those students will go to that 3rd grade gifted and talented starting this September. The other thing I promised and this we did in conjunction with the CEC presidents. We had them all in on a Saturday. We discussed what the possibilities were to this. And they will also have, and it goes right to your issue, honors programs in at least one of their middle schools for these kids who now will come up the pipeline. And then this is how I do think we will better prepare the kids to be able to get to screen programs, specialized high schools, because it'll be a program. The reason I didn't do it in early childhood is as a principal, I had a gifted and talented program. And what we found is that a lot of students, remember, and I don't know if it's true, if you did it, it was basically based on verbal ability. And a lot of it had to do with socioeconomics, and it doesn't show long-term giftedness. So I would have often many students who would reach 2nd grade who still couldn't read and write, but were in that track. So as a principal, we moved more to a school-wide enrichment model overall, and actually our test scores started zooming when we did that. So I do think there's a lot of ways to approach this, but I think honors classes in middle school are crucial. Advanced placement in high school is crucial. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that citywide.
Thank you. And lastly, let me just say, I do appreciate your coming into the districts. We prefer that you come on a Thursday when we're not in Albany, but you came to a CEC meeting in District 25 a couple of months ago, and I can testify the Chancellor had cards. She read the questions and then answered the questions. It was obviously not a pre-staged whatever, and we thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Perkins?
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for being here and for what you do for us and for our children in public schools. I'm not a automatic supporter of mayoral control. It was born under the Bloomberg administration under a dictatorial approach, and as a result we have he started creating these charter schools, and they were not brought to our attention in terms of sort of more open process. And in fact, it was a period in which such schools were proliferating throughout the country, as a matter of fact. And frankly, it turns out most of the places where they existed, they didn't add up, so they don't in many places exist anymore. But nevertheless, we have them in the city, and so first I want to get an update from your point of view about what's happening with the charters. And I'm a product of the New York City public school system and at the old school. So I just want to get a sort of your honest to goodness update on what's happening with these schools.
I think, charter schools, like parochial schools, like public schools, are all different, and they all have different purposes, but they're all our kids.
They're all our kids, there's no question about that.
And
That's why we all
yeah.
are here.
And I visit charter schools to see what are the things that we can learn from them. We've worked with 2 or 3 particular schools and on certain things. One of the pushes that I'm doing right now are in terms of using departmentalized instruction to teach math in 5th grade, which is one of the things I observed in a lot of the charter schools. One of the charter school networks, Uncommon, has been particularly helpful in helping us with professional development of principals in terms of the teacher feedback. And also, I go to visit schools that, in many cases, particularly the independent charter schools, that may need extra help and support. So, because if they're only one of a kind, if I can put them in touch with another school that can help them in whatever area they need help. So I think it's pretty much an individual situation based on the individual school principles and needs. But again, it's parent choice. There are other options, and I do think that working together, we can help, all kids to succeed.
So, in that regard, what are the demographics of the students? Do you have a breakdown in terms of, black, white, Latino, et cetera?
For our charter school students, it is close to 50-50 in terms of male-female. Approximately 55% black, 37% Latino, 2.2% Asian, 4% white, and 2% other.
So 92% non-white.
Correct.
Okay.
Or no.
55 and 37 is what?
It was only 2%.
You're close to 70%.
Huh?
You're close to 75%,
I thought you
80%.
said 55 and 37 is what I thought I heard
Yes,
those numbers.
that's correct.
So 55 and I'm a public.
Yes.
5537 92.
Yes.
Right, 92. So that's sort of like, why is nobody else going to those schools if they're so good?
Well,
Why aren't white parents sending their children to charter schools?
Well, remember, there are lots of options. You have independent
Sure.
schools, parochial schools, charter schools, and public schools. And I think also a lot of it is based on demographics, where you live in the city. I mean,
Why are charter schools only in those places?
that's their choice.
We have charter schools in some in neighborhoods that have predominantly white communities, including District 3 and District 2,
District 15.
and District 15.
And then District 3, which I also represent, what are the demographics of those kids?
I don't have the specifics on the demographic of the students in District 3, but we can get back to you.
Do you think it's any different than the general demographic picture?
I can't make that assumption. I have to get back to you.
Okay. Assuming that it isn't, why are these schools only attracting parents of color? What is it that they're doing or that they're not getting in the traditional public school?
I mean, I think to some degree, it's parent choice. Many of the schools have an extended time, and, again, parents choose for all kinds of different reasons.
Okay, so but you have this significant disparity between where one group of parents send their children and another group of parents send their children.
I also want to note that as a system as a whole, a majority of our students are Black and Latino
So
In public schools.
in public schools.
So, but that I understand that. I'm a native New Yorker, so I understand that. But I'm trying to understand why are white parents not using the so-called charter schools?
They are, if they're in neighborhoods where they live, in district.
Okay, what are the give me some statistics on that.
Well, I will tell you
Okay.
that there's one in my particular neighborhood.
Well, what are the percentage? Give me some numbers. Yeah.
I have
There's one
to.
in your particular neighborhood. Okay.
I will get back to you on the specifics in the neighborhood. So district.
Because I'm very concerned about that. Because today is the day that, to some extent, we are acknowledging the civil rights movement in the fact that today is Malcolm X's birthday, and he, amongst others like Dr. King, were concerned about these kind of disparities because they tend to reflect some sort of second-class arrangements. Integration was an effort to get away from that, and I still see that in this city, since the Bloomberg administration, most of our children, most of the children who are in these schools are children of color. And why are these schools not in other communities? Why are these communities able to get what they need at a so-called traditional public schools, whereas these so-called privatized models, some of which are for-profit, are sort of where the parents have to go to get the same kind of, to get a quality education.
Well, my goal...
And the question is also whether or not they're even getting that quality education.
My goal is to make every school a school of choice. And I will tell you that one of the major things that we've tried to do, certainly in the last year and a half, is to put out grants where charter schools and public schools in the same building would find ways to collaborate and work together. And that's, to me, where your issue of how do you get people to work together and come together is really, really important. But in terms of very specifics by district, we're very happy to provide that, so you could see the breakdown by different parts of the city.
Right. But has it ever occurred to you that there was this sort of picture of two types of systems with two different types of populations?
I think in neighborhoods, they tend to be pretty similar by neighborhood in terms of different parts of the city. Some parts of the city may have more charter schools than others, but in terms of the ones that are within a geographical neighborhood, I think the numbers tend to be really rather pretty much the same ethnically. Not in terms of special ed hours.
Can you say you have that report? Could you generate that?
We will get that for you.
Yeah, please do, because I haven't seen that as I travel around my district and around other neighborhoods. So, and it bothers me because it reminds me of an era that I think we don't want to repeat. And so, and I don't now. How are we doing with our charter schools? How are they comparing? You have statistics that represent success?
We'll get you the specific statistics, but we are seeing success in both some of our charter schools and in our traditional public schools.
And in terms of the charters, how do they compare?
To each other or to the public schools?
To the public schools, yeah.
In terms of ELA scores, public schools are doing a little bit better, and in terms of SMATH scores, the charter schools are doing a little bit better.
So you'll send me the report?
Yes, we have that report. It's public.
Have you looked at what's happening with them in other parts of the country?
We've looked at some other cities, but all of them have implemented them a little differently. And I think the biggest lesson learned from us is that there needs to be more sharing of practices between the charter world and the public school world.
Just give me an example of what you mean.
We looked at what are some of the practices or some of the bottom line philosophies. I'll give you two examples. Uncommon Schools Network is doing a particularly strong engagement with something called Relay College that they actually formed, and that does very specific training of principals and teachers in professional development. And we had seen that some of those schools were getting good results, so we actually approached them about working, particularly in District 23, 19, and 17, I believe, in Brooklyn. And we're piloting this year, we've been doing this for over a year, to see if we have better success using this process. Another program that we hope to do, one of the other charter schools networks, is doing a particularly good job, not just of getting their high school kids into college, but keeping them there beyond freshman year. And we're looking to see what they've done particularly well to be able to replicate some of that work within our own high school
What charter
work.
schools is that, by the way?
That's the KIPP charter schools.
KIPP charter schools? And are there any others other than KIPP?
Well, one of the schools I visited, which was the all-girls prep, was doing some interesting work with departmentalization in math, and it was one of the places where we started thinking about doing departmentalization in some subject, only in elementary school, which was not a normal practice. But I also want to say that I think they have a lot to learn from us as well. There's a lot of things that we do well, so having them, we've invited principals who want to be part of our district principals conferences if they choose to. There are several principals who actually come to the public school principals meeting, so they have someone else to talk to. So I think there's a lot of common ground that we can learn from each other, and I look forward to seeing how else we might work together.
So do you do any kind of a report when you make those type of analysis and when you recognize those type of successes or even failures? Do you have reports towards that represent that?
We haven't
Because if you have
done it.
nothing, you said. I'm
I
sorry.
said we haven't done it up until now, but.
Well, why
soon.
not? If you have a thing that's working,
Well, we
don't
get-
you wanna
because we
let
get
people know?
academic
You have
results.
bragging rights. You
Yeah.
should be able to
Okay.
report that.
For the charters that we do authorize, because
Yep.
DOE is an authorizer for a handful of charters, we do have reports on their successes and where they need areas of improvement.
And the measures and the practices and procedures that have resulted in those
In their
that
successes.
you were then using in the regular traditional public school system as you were supposed to do when they were born to begin with? Because as you know, the whole purpose of the charter
Correct.
movement
Yes,
was
it's innovation.
as an experiment, not to proliferate, but to share moments of success, practices of success that would then improve the traditional public school system. In other parts of the country, that they were not able to do that.
And I think
You
as a,
claim in New York City you've been able to do that. So do you have a report that represents how this charter school helped us understand how best to teach kids in this regular traditional public schools? Do you have bragging rights that
We won't.
that you have compiled in terms of some kind of report? Because if you do, that would be a good thing, not just for New York City, but for other parts of the country as well.
Well, we just started this year the district charter school partnerships, which is partially is to do exactly what you say, to ask charter schools and public schools together to apply for these grants where we can actually see how we each help each other. I do think that the things that we learn the most from are things that are truly innovative. Part of the reason we started what we call the PROS program is to allow schools who want to try some of these innovative things to not follow UFT rules, not follow DOE regulations. One of the schools that we're looking at for innovation is a school that decided to have 4 days a week, teachers working 4 days a week. Students are in school 5 days, but the teachers work 4 days a week till 5 o'clock. They have after-school programs fit into the program. And to see if this indeed helps us with teacher retention, teacher recruitment. We have another school that is looking at a very different way to serve special needs kids in terms of extra support, but in a different way. So I think we're trying to be very innovative ourselves within our own framework. We will have, at the end of this year, 200 schools that are PRO schools that are going to be public schools trying something different than they have in the past.
So just want to be clear. So you have charter schools that have exemplified techniques or other kinds of ways of success that you have been able to bring to traditional public schools and sort of replicate that success? Do you have reports on that? Because that's bragging rights, and it would seem to me that if charter schools are doing wonderful things that can be done in the traditional public schools where the vast majority of the kids are, then that should be something that's reported, that we who are interested in these schools should know about, and there should be a document. What we've learned from charter schools and how they've improved our traditional public schools, and why we should continue in that regard.
and what I would
Kind
note
of an idea. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
we hear
But
what you're
as long as they've been around, there's been no report that has said charter schools are doing wonderful things. A, B, C, or D is what we've learned, and look how we have been able to put it into the traditional public school where the vast majority of the kids are.
And the mayor made an announcement on his Equity and Excellence Initiative, which was the district charter partnership with the chancellor just discussed, and it is being launched for the September of this upcoming year. And what we can do is develop a report to talk about the successes, both from and the learnings that are happening within that
But
program.
why haven't we done that up to now? I mean,
Because it's individual
what's been
strategies.
the charter schools have been around here for how long?
I don't know, 10 years? 10 years.
Some around 10
About
years.
10 years.
Okay. It's been a decade of charters. Where's the charter report on success in terms of how it has helped our traditional public schools where the vast majority of the kids go, and where the whole idea of the charter was towards that end? That was the whole purpose of the charter. Not to expand the movement so that charter developers would get rich, but rather so that the children would be the benefit, would get rich with education. So where's that report that says the riches have been shared?